Albert Awol, the voice of the jungle, broadcasting on the DVC to all points unknown. If you're within the sound of my voice, you're listening to Welcome Home Podcast on the DVC.
Hello and welcome to the Waitlist. This is I got Trevor with me here, and For those that don't know, this is like our little topic-based show that we do every once in a while when we're not around for one reason or another, right?
It was a good reason this week, I think.
Yeah, I was busy, so
Tom was busy, and because of that, it wasn't anything bad. He had a good time. I'll let him decide if he wants to share with you what it was.
No, I went to a concert. That's all.
Fair. Yeah,
let's just say that.
To know.
Yeah, let's just say that I went to a concert, had a great time. It was a good time, but it's always hard to do this show when any of us have like something going on during the weekend, because it can make it a little bit difficult to get availability together. So,
and this is a Sunday night thing now that we're.
Oh my gosh!
It worked out that none of us could get together because there was that thing going on, and then work schedules and all that just didn't work out. So we're getting a wait list this week, and I think this is a good one. I think this will be a good topic of conversation. So
I have to thank Dan K for this one, for spotting this one, because this is an interesting topic. And listen, I wish I had my Reckless Speculation song created, because that's all we're going to do on this wait list is recklessly speculate. So I'll say on the front end, everything we're about to discuss is a rumor and not confirmed. We're taking a blog and recklessly speculating on the blog post. So and all of you are to that point, who I don't know who said it in the Discord. Oh, it was Jason said it. It's WDWNT. Okay, never mind. So
yes, yeah.
Right, listen,
yeah.
Listen, I have a history.
It's a little bit out
people.
there. Yes,
I have a history with those people, right? And they do have legitimate sources within Disney. That doesn't mean they're right all the time, but they're not always wrong either. They do get things right sometimes. So,
Sometimes the stuff that they post, it does spark enough discussion that you do actually get an official response from it. So
that's true. Yeah.
Even though it doesn't necessarily have a basis in fact, sometimes it's just a good jumping off point to see things happen. So.
Yeah, actually, years ago, I remember that they had reported that there was going to be like a Toy Story show replacing Country Bears, and Disney came out and was like, not true.
Squashed, yeah. They squashed it pretty quick, which was kind of nice to see that, they responded to it instead of letting the rumor run rampantly.
Exactly. So
maybe we'll get some pull because of this rumor. So you never know.
So this is really an interesting one, because it's a rumor that kind of expands outward, and you'll see what I mean in a sec. So the rumors indicate that Universal Creative, which is their version of Imagineering, is currently developing plans that will replace Marvel's Superhero Island at Islands of Adventure. So what does this mean, right? So I think everyone knows, right? Well, maybe not everybody knows. I don't know. I was actually talking with my family with my family about this, and they weren't aware of this whole thing where, you can't have Marvel at Disney World. So those that don't know, right, years ago when Marvel was very desperate for money, they signed not great. What's that?
They made a pact.
They made
an agreement.
Yeah, exactly. They made an agreement with Universal to provide their characters for their parks. And one of the caveats of that was that they would be the only amusement park allowed to use Marvel characters east of the Mississippi River. And I mean, literally, I'm looking at the actual contract right here. East of the Mississippi, any other theme park is limited to using the characters not being used by the MCA. So if part of the reason why we have Guardians of the Galaxy at Disney World is because it's not part of like this contract, right? It's not part of like they're not part of the Avengers necessarily from the comics. They're not, part of any of those groups, those kinds of things. So Disney was kind of able to get away with that. But, east of the Mississippi, and it's obvious, listen, obviously Universal put this in here specifically so Disney could never do this, right? So they obviously did this for that purpose. So interestingly enough, the other part of this too is this deal was in perpetuity, right? So meaning it never expires.
It's there as long as Universal wants to make use of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. As long as they want to do it. I've been saying for a long time now that I think that Disney will try to get these rights back because Marvel is way too big of a property. We were talking about this on the Discord. I think it's probably Disney's most valuable IP at this point, right? Like, I mean, if you look at it, the MCU by itself is valued by some at over $50 billion just for the MCU, right? So I think Disney wants these rights back, right? So this rumor says to me that, if this ends up being true, and they do decide to remove this stuff and change it, and this is in the contract, that if they remove all of the Marvel related characters from the park, it terminates the agreement automatically. So if there's no Marvel left. And
I believe that's because of the wording. There's something about the wording in it that they have to keep using the characters in the scope of, like, they can't just like have like a booth somewhere in the park and go, well, we're using them, so it's fine. They have to be like used to an extent where it's like, hey, this is like a land, not specifically a land, but like a high quality theme park experience. So knowing that, as soon as if Universal suddenly decided to stop doing that, or take out this whole land that they have towards it, that does break the contract. Because
I think go ahead, sorry, Trevor.
I mean the thing about that is that it's I also kind of see this as that part of the contract kind of stuck for me when I was reading that it almost sounds like it might be hitting a point where they're talking about replacing it because maybe they can't keep maintaining it to the level that they're interpreting the contract at. Like, we're always thinking about this from like, Disney wants it back, Disney's going to take this, but maybe Universal's also getting tired of it too. Like that, it's kind of a weird angle to approach it from, but maybe they're realizing that, the stuff that they have in there is incredibly dated at this point.
Well, and they do have to pay Disney for this, right? So there is an annual fee that they pay to Disney to have these. They're paying it to Marvel, which goes to Disney. So they are basically paying Disney. I don't know how much it is. It doesn't say in the agreement that you can see here. It's kind of marked off, but I'm assuming it's in the millions of dollars, right? That there's a couple things now, because Disney owns the Simpsons too, and the Simpsons are in their parks, and
they're just handing IP money to Disney to keep the park running, which is
pretty much weird. It is kind of weird. The interesting thing to me though, like, I don't think there's any way that Universal just gives this up, right? Like they're gonna agree to cancel this contract for some amount of money from Disney, or maybe they'll do like what they did with Oswald, and they'll pull off a trade. Like they traded Al Michaels,
a football player for
he's a football announcer. It's worse. It's a football announcer for Oswald. Now this is a lot bigger, right? So it would really have to be something big, and I don't know if there's really anything that Universal wants that Disney has, right? And that Disney will want to give away, So like the swap scenario to me is not something I would see. I think this is going to be.
I disagree.
Oh, really? Okay.
So Disney. So we just finished hearing about how Imagineering is kind of ramping back up at Disney, and I know that Imagineers move back and forth, but maybe that's actually an angle that Universal could be approaching for this, is that, they could say, fine, you want this IP back, or you want this Marvel stuff back. We want somebody from your side to help us create something to replace it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's kind of an interesting way to say is, we'll give you this, but you help us replace it.
Now, here's
Right?
what's even more interesting. Would Disney agree to that? I don't know if they would.
I feel like they would,
Yeah.
because it's actually in their best interest
Yeah.
to play ball on that level, because it is mutually beneficial. Even if there's even if Imagineers are developing something for Universal, I think there is some leverage there that Universal could use. I don't believe that Universal is entirely like, well, we're doing our own thing over here, and if it's not Monsters or Nintendo or whatever, we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't think they're like, we like to believe that there's like this old school, like like West Side Story fight going on between Disney and Universal. I don't think it's like that. Right?
I actually agree with you, because they will often, I've heard Disney say many times that Universal doing well helps them, and them doing well helps Universal, because the people that they're bringing into the area, most of the time they're both benefiting in some way or shape or form, right? So like maybe not like, I go on a trip now and I just go to Disney, but maybe next time I go to Universal, like it's you end up helping everybody, I think. But the interesting thing about this though too, Trevor, so according to this rumor, right, so it says that Universal Creative is developing plans for a Pokemon themed land. And they currently work with Pokemon at Universal Studios Japan, and the Universal Studios Japan version of the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man is rumored it just closed recently for refurbishment, and it's being rumored that it's going to be rethemed to Pokemon. So that's part of this too, is like, okay, well, if they're going to do that at Japan, they could retheme the Spider-Man one in the United States to Pokemon as well. This also mentions too that this other rumors point to Pokemon taking over the Simpsons Springfield, and this article points out correctly, the Simpsons is another property that Universal has theme park rights to, but has to pay Disney for, right? Mm-hmm. So with looking at that, maybe they just don't want to pay Disney for this stuff anymore, and maybe that's what it is. But I still think. I just feel like for the Marvel one specifically, Disney's going to have to buy them out. I just think they're going to have to give them a stupid amount of money for it.
Well, but hold on though. If this rumor is true though about them, again, the whole premise of the rumor is they're building something to replace the Marvel or the Marvel Heroes Land, right?
Yeah.
So if that was actually going on and it was this known at this point, or, if this information got out, that greatly diminishes the value of Disney buying it out. Because if Disney knew that they were building something new, they would just go, well, we'll just wait until you replace it. And then as soon as you replace it, either the contract becomes null and void and we get it for free, or, they're able to negotiate pennies on the dollar, so to speak. I know they're still probably talking in millions of dollars, but they get to negotiate it at a much cheaper rate, because there is leverage saying, we're taking or you're dumping it anyway, so it's not of any value to you, so you should give it to us for a reasonable price, right? Like that. Yeah, that's where my head goes with it, is that if this rumor was true, that would really hurt the bargaining power we were just talking about that Universal would have with Disney, because they would I'm that's not to say that it's not happening, but I feel like I feel like if this was happening, I feel like the whole Universal Marvel thing would be further along. Or maybe let's play into it that maybe this has already happened and we just don't know about it. Maybe there is something happening in the background, and we're going to start seeing it, once maybe the agreement is that once they announce whatever this new thing is, all of a sudden you'll start seeing, Marvel merch popping up in Epcot or something like.
Yeah. So it's interesting though, like, cause I agree with you, Trevor. Like we kind of said this, right? Where even though we had, D23 and we had all these announcements, Disney's still going to announce more stuff, and they already have announced more stuff, and they're going to continue announcing more stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, whatever this is going to be at some point, it doesn't really mean that it doesn't need a D23 to announce it, right? But what I think here is, to your point though, if they're smart, and I think Universal's probably pretty smart, they're going to get as much value out of this as they can, I would think. Like, I don't think they would just give it up for nothing, but here's the other thing I don't know the answer to. Like, if they're paying Disney hundreds of millions of dollars for the license to this, then, I mean, maybe it is just worth it to just give it up, because they're paying so much out that Disney doesn't need to pay them to break it. They're just going to save that money of, paying for the license for it. I mean, because again, they're also paying for The Simpsons too. But one of the things I have been talking about on the show for a while, and those, pay attention to business news, a couple years back, Disney, when they bought Fox, they got 2/3 of the Hulu service, which I know you don't have, Trevor, in Canada. And when they did that, they agreed to buy the last portion of it from Comcast, which is Universal. So, and they're in that process right now. Disney already paid them for part of it, but there's a dispute of how much that last third of Hulu is worth. And I tend to believe, and like I said, I have no sources on this or anything, I just think that while they're having those kinds of negotiations, that maybe they talked about this, maybe this came up. Maybe, Iger's wheeling and dealing over there. It's like, listen, hey, we'll pay a little bit more for Hulu. You got to give me the theme park rights back, though. Or, but it's interesting that I really wish I knew how much they paid them per year, because I think that really is what makes it, right? If they're paying them like, $100 million a year, it might be worth it for Universal to just cut it off,
And that's a fair point too. So, thinking about that income flow that they have, you're right. Maybe this is why, we've also been looking at this as, Disney wants to buy, or they should want to buy back Marvel because they can make money off it. And maybe Disney's sitting there going, yeah, we're making money off of it, whatever, they don't have to do anything with it, and they're just getting, income from it. Maybe this is maybe the new park being announced, maybe that's actually not what Disney wants, which is kind of weird. If you think about it, that, this now becomes an equation of, they've been focusing on the Marvel IP stuff in all their other parks, and they've been leaving Florida pretty much alone because they haven't had to do anything with Florida.
Yeah.
But if this suddenly stops being a thing at Universal, then they have to do something at Florida, which they've already got a bunch of other stuff slated for Florida. So then it becomes, then people are going to go, when are we getting Avengers Campus East?
Yeah.
And they're going to go,
well,
right?
So sorry, Trevor, were you still going? I'm sorry.
I'm just laughing now at how, like, after everything they announced, if suddenly it was like, and you've got Marvel stuff to do too, like that moment of panic
that
where
blows everything up. Yeah,
you don't have anywhere to put this, right?
Yeah. Well, so I'm reading through the contract here too, right? So this is really interesting. Universal pays Marvel a certain amount, right? Obviously, they pay them a certain amount per year. They also, and this gives them exclusive rights to use Marvel characters in Islands of Adventure. And also, has an option for additional Marvel universes and other Universal theme parks. And so Universal pays an annual fee to Marvel. And then also, though, this is interesting, right? So they pay an annual guaranteed merchandise advance. So basically, there's a guaranteed amount that they get every year for merchandise royalties. That's a guaranteed amount, so it could go over that, and then they still get more, probably a percentage of some sort. But and then also,
if there's no merch being sold, they're still paying.
They're still getting a guaranteed amount. Yeah.
Wow.
And then this is interesting too. All sums to be paid will be increased for each year after 1998 using the U.S. national CPI. So they're actually increasing the fee every year based on inflation. So so this could be getting more and more expensive for Universal.
This is what Universal wants out of it. And it's not, it's not that Disney can't afford to buy it off of Universal. It's that they've probably been milking it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Universal as long as they could. I know.
That's
an interesting angle on this.
That's why I wanted to dig into this, because I mean I can dig into Disney's to their annual reporting to the SEC and see if I can see. I mean they bury stuff, right? So like I doubt there's any way that I can see how much Universal's paying them. Yeah,
the problem is with like contract licensing and stuff. You're never going to get a clear picture of like they're getting exactly X amount of dollars from Universal. Be more like, oh, here's all of our park investment. Like they'll use like a fuzzy umbrella to say like, this is what we're getting from a bunch of different places, or like licensing.
It just falls into a bucket.
Because that's the thing is, this falls in like, this is in the same capacity as like, there's lots of companies that do, you'll see like, Disney Stanley mugs, right? And it's like they have a licensing deal with Disney for Stanley mugs. And so that this is in that same bucket. So you'll never see exactly what that percentage is that's coming from Universal.
Yeah. So every time that Universal sells a Spider-Man, something, a percentage of that goes to Disney. Like,
here's something else to think about with that too, is, we talk about sometimes how the merch is bad in the parks, right? At various points, the merch is not great. I guess to be fair, I am also kind of operating in a bubble that I'm mainly focused on Disney stuff, but I can't remember the last time anybody talked about merch coming specifically from the Marvel area of the Universal park, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like they're probably producing a whole bunch of merch there, trying to sell stuff. But the part that makes it even harder is because it is Disney now, and Disney kind of has, they've reinvented the brand of Marvel, with the Avengers and all that. People going into Universal, it's like, oh, here's like an X-Men shirt or whatever, and it's like, unless you were like into X-Men back as a kid, which like for people my age, definitely, I like, the X-Men was a part of my childhood and all that, and if I saw some X-Men merch, I would seriously consider looking at it. But that's not selling at the same volume as like an Iron Man anything at this point, or just Avengers stuff. So, the fact that they're paying flat, like minimum royalties, even if they're not selling it, and they're actually like the grounds for competition there are way harder now because of all the work that Disney's done, trying to sell what people would probably perceive as like, this is like off-brand merch, even though it is official like Marvel merch, but it's not, it's not as good as the Disney stuff. That's all got to be hurting Universal's reasoning to keep this land around, right?
It's an interesting thought. Disney's been kind of testing them on this for a while, right? Where they've been trying to see if they can push the limits of the contract and see if Universal will complain. Like they did like a Doctor Strange meet and greet for like a month, and then they like backed off of it. In
Disneyland or
Disney? At Disney World. No, they did in Disney World for like a month, and then they backed off.
Right.
I don't know if like Universal sent them like a cease and desist or something, but I also remember too that they tried to sell some Marvel merch at Disney Springs, thinking it's not part of the theme park, and then they didn't use like the names, right? It was I forget what it was. It was like there's like a Spider-Man action figure, and it was like Spider guy, like it's on the tag, like it just they had to make it like
Avenger web guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a guy with shield. But I don't remember if that how they actually put that. But they also wrap the monorails in superhero stuff at one point, and this article even actually mentions that and how silly that was, because they could only wrap the monorails that were going around the Magic Kingdom loop, because if they went on the Epcot loop, they were technically going inside the park. So, which is just silly. It's just silly.
Wow. Yeah. I guess that's the funny thing, is that the whole thing or the whole stipulation of this is Marvel inside of a theme park. And yeah, like you said, Disney has been stretching that by, we're not in the theme park. Like, it's really
just outside the theme park.
It's the I'm not touching you game, right?
That's what it is. Yeah, no, it's 100% what it is. Like, I think they're just waiting to get a cease and desist. Like, let's see. Well, and interestingly enough, they did Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm assuming they had to have cleared that with Universal first, right? Because
or at least establish that it was far enough removed from the main Marvel universe. The same way, like they kind of touched on that with Big Hero 6 and stuff too, that these were like non-mainline IPs that were exempt, right? And it shows also in the merch, like if you go into the where you come out of Guardians, the merch area in there, it's very clearly Guardians merch, not
Marvel
merch.
And I mean, from what I've read, and I actually don't see this necessarily specified in this contract that I'm looking at, but because Guardians of the Galaxy are not part of the Avengers or part of X-Men or Fantastic Four or any of like the groups,
funny enough, they are in the main movies now, right?
That's true, but I mean, are they technically Avengers? I don't know.
They're not. They're not really. They established that in the movies that they were their own.
Avengers. Yeah,
they were their own thing.
They're their own thing, right? So that's how Disney got away with that one. So I think where we should shift this now though, Trevor, is what happens if they do get it, right? Okay. Because you kind of alluded to this, right? Like, what happens if they do get it? And I was saying this in the Discord. I think they go hard on this because, listen, Marvel, they're going hard on Marvel everywhere across the world, right? And like I said, Marvel is maybe their most valuable property, right? And it's going to continue to be, right? Like, they just look at how successful Deadpool and Wolverine just was, right? Like, and I think the MCU overall has I think it's more than $20 billion in box office. I mean, it's incredibly successful, right? I think, having Marvel stuff in the parks would immediately be very popular. Like, a lot of kids will want to come, a lot of adults will want to come. I mean, we talked about this before. I'm going on the cruise ship and they have like that superhero academy for kids on there. I kind of want to go. But you know what I mean? Like,
I want to hang out with the superheroes. Move, kid.
Get out of my way, child. But I mean, I think what would happen personally, and this is what I think, Trevor, I think that the first thing you would see is characters popping up in the parks. And I'm guessing Hollywood Studios, because that's where they fit the best, right? Like, you'd see them pop. I think Hollywood Studios would make the most sense. And you'd start seeing meet and greets and little shows and stuff, right? Like, that's just the start, though. That's like step one, right?
That's new Star Wars launch bay.
Yes, that's exactly. It'll be phase one.
It'll be Avengers launch bay. I don't know.
I mean, maybe. Then I want to think that they just go with a land and like they did at Disneyland, but I don't think they do. I think they go bigger than that. And the only reason I said this in the Discord and I didn't really mean it. I was just kind of being silly. Fifth gate of just Marvel, make it a Marvel park, right? The whole thing. I don't think that actually is a terrible idea. I think that would be really popular.
You want Marvel? The Marvel campus is, second exit on the way to, Boardwalk.
That's. Listen, and I mentioned this, right? Remember when we were looking at the Disneyland forward plans, and you saw that there was it was small, but you could see where they had built in the concept art Wakanda, right? Like, they literally had a whole Wakanda section. Like, if you think about Marvel as a whole, it is one large IP, and there are so many characters within that. You could do different lands within the park of all these different superheroes. You can have a whole Spider-Man land that's, just
New York.
Just New York. Yeah. You could have Wakanda there. You could have Asgard. I mean, Avengers you could do campus, all of that. Yeah. And I think, an Avengers campus. I mean, and I just had this idea right now, Trevor. You could turn the former Galactic Star Cruiser into an Avengers hotel. Boom. Like, how cool would that be?
I mean,
Yeah.
would it fall into the same mistakes as the Star Cruiser? Maybe,
Probably.
but
Yeah. But the problem with that has always been that it's too small, and because it's so small, it costs too much money to run, right?
Yeah. Well, the cost was really the biggest prohibitive thing about it. Was what they were doing was way too ambitious. But no, the point still stands. I see where your line of thinking is on this, and I don't disagree that a fifth gate devoted entirely to Marvel would be an interesting prospect. And again, based on the fact that, everything else that they announced at D23 has been improvements to the existing parks and adding on, I don't see how they could, if suddenly it was, Marvel was starting to pop up in the parks. Yes, there would definitely be that demand. They're going, yeah, we've got the meet and greets. That's great. When are you doing the Marvel ride or, whatever the big thing is. Right. And I mean, I agree with you that, a fifth gate would be, that would definitely blow everybody's mind. But in lieu of that, I also could see them like, we're getting an expansion to Magic Kingdom. I actually think Hollywood Studios could do with a big expansion too. And that, I agree. And then the weird thing about that is it becomes the debate is then, Marvel or Star Wars, right? Which Disney's kind of put themselves in that position where like, it feels like I only have so much energy and time, and I have to kind of pick, do I want to look at Marvel stuff or do I want to look at Star Wars stuff? And, right now I am more interested in the Marvel stuff, particularly to your point about even, lands and stuff. Like I'm very interested. I'm waiting until a couple of the episodes come out, but, Agatha or the new Agatha show is coming out here. And, I want to kind of get a backlog of it so I can binge watch, a bunch of them. But it's like, hey, that plays in with Villains Land pretty nice. And so, there's all this pent up potential, I think that, they haven't even touched on it. But like you said, it's, could there be enough momentum there for a fifth gate? Maybe. Like I wouldn't say it's a sure like slam dunk. I think it's a maybe, but the way I see it is, I agree with you, the characters would be the first thing. I think the next thing you'll see is the merch will be everywhere. Like it'll be just like, you won't be able to go anywhere in any park without there being a Marvel section, right? Like they'll find a way to put it in, Memento Mori.
I mean, no, they'll have Memento Mori. They'll have a Spider-Man theme to Memento Mori.
It'll be an Agatha all along section. Memento
perfect.
Mori. It's so easy. Like, right?
If they put Marvel in Hollywood Studios, they should just rename that park to the Park of Acquired IPs because
acquired IP,
Pixar, Star Wars, and then Marvel all within the park. If you think about it, right? Like that's
and
Muppets
Simpsons.
too. Muppets too.
Yeah,
Muppets are an acquired IP too. That entire park,
Henson.
That entire park is literally IP that they have bought, right? Which is fine, I mean, I guess with the exception of Mickey and Minnie and probably a few other things, and Frozen.
Well, the shows. There's Beauty and the Beast and Frozen.
Beauty and the Beast, Phantasmic, all that, right? But
whatever.
Yes, but I've said this for a long time. I don't think a fifth gate's happening. I've said that, and I still kind of believe that. At the same time, I feel like somebody, somewhere, if this is going to happen, is going to be, like, just can't help themselves, right? I mean, because again, I think they want to do a whole huge Marvel park. The only reason they didn't do it at Disneyland is they don't have the space, right? I mean, like they just don't have a lot of space there, and so
I mean that's why they fit it into where the Bugs Land area was, which people even say this is the Avengers campus is okay, but it's not as good as it could be, and I think that space is the big limit.
Well, and now they're going to build that e-ticket attraction, so that's going to help, right? So like they needed to put that in. But listen, and I'm not saying they're going to build a whole fifth gate around Marvel. I'm just saying they could. Like I think it would work, and I think even though the movies have been not as, I mean, it's so funny because you look at some of these movies, right? And it's like, oh, like the last Ant-Man was like a failure and it still made more money than like pretty much every movie, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like they're still very popular and it's still very popular franchises. And, you know, I think they're, you know, if you look at it, they've taken the feedback that they've gotten about it and they're pulling back, right? They're going back towards quality as opposed to quantity, right? And that's like a big Iger thing, right? So I do think that the MCU can be, you know, the thing again. It's just going to be interesting to see if this were to happen. Again, this is all rumor, right? Like this has been rumored for a long time too. So this is not even like new news at this point, right? But if this is actually going to happen, I will be very interested to see how Disney reacts. And I also do want to mention too, they, you know, when they just signed that recent contract with the district, right? Like, and this got reported in a lot of weird ways where they said, oh, Disney's opening a fifth park. Some people did, but that's not what the contract said. It said that they have the option to build a fifth park if they want to, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's possible they could. I mean, but you're talking, it's going to cost, you know, $4 or $5 billion and be, you know, a long time down the road if they were to do it. But yeah, I don't know if this does end up happening. I'd be interested. And like you said, with Simpsons, if they cancel Simpsons, do they do something with Simpsons? I don't know. Probably, right?
Yeah, hear me out on this, okay? I just, you know, talking about all this, I don't think it would be crazy if we didn't get a fifth gate, but we actually got a gate 4.5.
Okay, so like a half park.
So yeah. So here's my thinking with this. You know, thinking about, you know, you were talking about Hollywood Studios and the you know, repurposing the Star Cruiser and everything. What if they built a land that actually it had its own entrance, it had its own gate, but they kind of did it how like the Hogwarts Express functions in Universal, where it connects between the two parks, right? Like because the Harry Potter stuff in both parks, and they use that as a bridge between both of those parks. What if they built something that was technically standalone, technically had its own gate, but wasn't an entire park per se? Like you know, we think of a park as like, you know, like Animal Kingdom or, you know, Epcot size park. But, you know, what if this allowed them to build something smaller, but then had that connection back to Hollywood Studios, you know, via a, you know, something, like I said, something similar to a Hogwarts Express kind of thing, because they have that in, you know, with the Star Cruiser, they were kind of doing that, right?
Well, that's how Peppa Pig Land is set up at Legoland, right? Like it's next to Legoland, but it's separate from Legoland, right?
But it has a connector to it, right? So,
well, I mean, it just has a walkway in between the two, but I mean,
that's my point. Is, you know, maybe it's not that, you know, Hollywood Studios, maybe Hollywood Studios gets a second gate because, you know, it's just a Marvel Land thing. And, you know, that would be, like you said, it would be big enough that it would justify having, you know, instead of Hollywood Studios being completely buried by it, you know, you could have it like a section cut out of Hollywood Studios that then connects into this other space. And it's kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think maybe we're all thinking gate 5. Maybe it's gate 4.5 that actually does happen.
Well, and
that's my crazy take on this. If I got anywhere close to right on this, I don't know what I mean. I need to go buy lottery tickets. If that's the case.
there was something in the agreement around that though too, where they could where Disney had the right to develop, I think, 2 smaller parks is what it said. Right. So like this is kind of what you're talking about, a smaller park, right? It's not a full on new fifth gate. It's a smaller standalone park, land, whatever. I mean, and you know, maybe they even do it the way that Peppa Pig does it, right? Where I don't have to pay for Legoland to go to Peppa Pig. I can pay for both, or I can pay for one. You know, so, and I mean, maybe you could do that too. Maybe you make that as an add-on to the ticket. You get access to. Yeah.
Isn't that the case with the Harry Potter thing, that if you want to go between them, you do actually have to have tickets for
both? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, there is precedent for this. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'll be interested to see how this shakes out. Like I said, we have no information on this. We are reading this off a website. It is pure rumor, but I do think it's an interesting conversation because if Universal really is planning on dumping, you know, and I've said that, if you remember, I've said it's like for a while now that I find it very weird that two of Disney's biggest pieces of IP are sitting in Universal parks. Like it's weird, I mean, Marvel's there, and even though the Simpsons is not what it was.
We weren't thinking about the them getting paid for it either way, like that. Yeah, I didn't think about that angle for all this. So once I saw that in the contract, now I'm thinking like, okay, well maybe Disney doesn't have to pay them to buy them out, because maybe Universal wants to stop paying them. Maybe Universal's tired of paying them all these licensing fees, and it's not worth it to them anymore, and they can bring in Pokemon, which is also an extremely popular franchise, right? And I mean, the worldwide audience for Pokemon is insane. Yeah, like,
well, they still have to pay for that though, too, right? They don't own Pokemon, so, but
because it's not even owned by, like, it's not a Nintendo IP. It's owned by what is the company? Why am I blanking on this now? I think it actually is the Pokemon company. I think it is.
It's owned by the Pokemon. I'm pulling this up very quickly.
It is. Yeah, it is the Pokemon company.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So they're the ones that actually own Pokemon, not. Sorry. I was thinking the parent organization. I was thinking it was Game Freak is the original developer.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was thinking of Game Freak, but the Pokemon company is who they would be. Like, it is a big license thing. And of course they would have to be paying them money for it. But, again,
they're not paying a competitor.
Yeah. And also they wouldn't be competing against the company in their own,
exactly.
In their own backyard, basically. Because that's really what Universal is doing right now, is that whole land is them competing against Disney with their own IP. Which, that's got to be tough.
It's just weird, it's just a weird thing.
But it was an evolution, right? It wasn't. It wasn't that's the way it was from the get go. It was they had their whole Marvel thing, and then it gradually morphed into this. And I think it's finally hitting that point where it's no longer sustainable for them. So it makes sense that the rumor about this makes sense. Again, none of this has any factual basis yet. We're just kind of speculating, but I'm very curious to see if Universal does announce something around this. Like you said, I want to see what the next steps are that Disney takes on this, because that will be the exact moment when they have to start acting upon it and doing more than just throwing the basic merch around that you find at Walmart or whatever. Like, they're actually going to have to start getting some park merch, and they're going to have to actually start getting like characters and doing stuff with it, because I think, as we've been saying, a lot of people are kind of staring around going, Disney, you got this everywhere else except Florida. When are we going to get it?
Well,
right?
And it's like, as soon as they bought Lucasfilm, it was like, okay, well, when is Star Wars Land coming? Right? Like, because it's there's not a single person that saw that they bought Lucasfilm and didn't think that they were going to put that in their park somewhere, right? Like, it just had to happen. It's too big. And I'd almost argue at this point that Marvel's bigger than Star Wars, right? I mean, Star Wars has. I think it is.
Okay, people are going to come at us for that, but
no, I think it's true though.
Yeah, because the thing about Star Wars is that I feel Star Wars is very niche.
It is.
Whereas Marvel has managed to touch upon, like, just the breadth of characters and storylines and stuff appeals to a lot more demographics than and they've just managed to, like, they've set it up in such a way that it's like, even if you say, I don't like Marvel, I can guarantee you that there's one character somewhere in the Marvel universe that you're like, yeah, he's cool. Like even Deadpool, like Deadpool is like the antithesis of standard superhero characters, and people love it. And it's, but it's still Marvel. Like, they go, that's not like Captain America and all those other guys, but it's still Marvel. Like,
exactly.
You can't get away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's end this. Yeah, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. I actually really enjoyed talking about this. And again, a huge thank you to Dan K for alerting us to this, because this was really an interesting thing to talk about. And I'm looking forward to actually seeing if this happens and seeing if we get an announcement of something in the future here. And if it's something, I mean, here's the thing, right? If it's in early development with Universal, we're probably not going to hear anything for a while, right? Yeah. So, but
yeah. You know, if we hear something next year, you know, hopefully we remember that we did this waitlist and we can go back and see how off base we were on it.
I will always remember, Trevor. I think you guys know all the places you can find us, right? Facebook, Patreon, all that fun stuff, right? Do we want to do that whole thing?
I can't remember all that right now.
All right. Well, listen, you can email us
yes.
at welcomehomepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube, all those other places. You know, you can email us. I think everybody knows this.
Find us on Facebook. Facebook, Instagram. All the usual places.
All the usual places. I would love to hear from everybody else too about this too. What do you think is going to happen? I want to know what everyone else thinks is going to happen. Like, tell us what you think. So, all right. Well, this has been the Waitlist.
This is Skipper Albert Awol, the voice of the jungle, signing off from Welcome Home Podcast on the DVC.
Do a huddle when we hit its hair. How she can cuddle is no man's affair. I looked around from pole to pole, found her in a sugar bowl.